So I have the pleasure now to give you an insight in the book. So let me share the screen. So this is the book. And I would just give you a few insights on a few chapters. So here you see the overview, all the chapters. The first 5, they give a little bit the background, they set the stage, talk about how the book was developed. We have as well here the foreword. And here I would like to thank the Minister for Climate Action, Environment, Energy, Mobility, Innovation and Technology from Austria, Leonor Gewessler. She took also the time to contribute with a foreword. Then I would also like to thank the Federal Minister for Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety in Germany, Svenja Schulze. And then would also like to thank Martin Schiess, the head of the Air Pollution Control and Chemicals Division in the Federal Office for the Environment of Switzerland. So this, and then I would just give you some insights on 3 chapters. One is the business case of chemical leasing. So this gives you some information why this chemical leasing model, this business-based approach, is a win-win situation, why you should switch to it as a company. So this chapter is probably most suitable for companies, but also for all others who are interested. And it also gives you some information. What is it about? What is this innovative approach? Then, and it also gives clear examples of companies who switched, and they speak very frank and open what were the advantages, but also what you have to be careful about. Then there is the section. I would like to give you some insights, that is the chemical leasing tools and methodology. So here, if you learn what we give you some tools and methodology if you really want to apply this in your company. It gives very concrete suggestions, what you can do, what are the don'ts, and it also gives you some insights on questions that came sometimes up on liability, legal aspects which you have to take into consideration. And as well here we have a very concrete real practice example in Serbia on it. And then the last chapter I'd like to open, and quite fascinating that you can open books now and you even have the sound. So the second one is the global drivers. That puts the chemical leasing model in the global environmental perspective. So it shows what were the drivers there to further develop it, to develop this tool and stimulate also the further development of the chemical leasing. So it puts more in that context. We have then voices from the European chemical agencies. We have also the University of Yale and OECD, among others, who give us this context. Yes, so that's the book. More I don't want to tell because it should also be just give you some flavor and motivate that you would like to open it maybe during the Christmas break and have learned a bit more about this fascinating model. So that's from my side. So I will close the book now and give it over to Petra.
Thank you very much, Gabi. So it's a really exciting book. You are very lucky that you will all get an electronic version. It really provides a nice insight on, and it was really designed also to work with industry and to see how we can really convince them to buy in on this new business model. I have now the pleasure to open our first round of the panel, and I would like to invite Thomas and also Christopher to switch on their video. And again, a warm welcome to everybody who joined now. So Thomas, you are the co-editor of the Chemical Leasing book, of the third one now. You did the first one. So how do you see the global context now? Where do you see the main drivers? And for a business model like Chemical Leasing, how does this fit in the current global framework?
Yes, thanks, Petra, for asking and putting this question to me. For me, it's a thrilling moment because after 2 decades of chemical leasing history, there are so many brilliant people from all over the world watching the launch ceremony for our third book. And you rightly mentioned that the history goes back to 2000 when we did the first tender on the potential of service-based business models. And then we have had 2 studies on that, and we decided to combine them in one book. And that was the first book on chemical leasing, which came out 2003. One of the main authors was already Reinhard Joas. And then we had this OECD conference, you remember, in 2005 on the service-oriented business models, on the potential. And this ignited that it was one of the main program focuses of UNIDO. And this is where the success story really began. Then when we managed to perform the first pilot strategies. And then that was the whole food for the second book. And where we stand today, think about the current topical discussions on how to implement the Sustainable Development Goals. We look at SICAM, the strategic approach on international chemicals, which will have its decisive meeting next year, where it comes to the decision how it will be prolonged, chemicals and waste. And this overarching circular economy discussion you have worldwide, and UNIDO has just launched a consultancy procedure for a global circular economy program. And just to mention also the European New Green Deal. And all these tendencies on the international arena, they are asking for a paradigm shift. What does it mean, a paradigm shift? Can you mention a single business model that is really shifting a paradigm? I can mention one. It's chemical leasing. And this is for me the real potential that we all together managed in the last 2 decades to really give a meaning to sustainable development, to show how it can be made happen. What does a paradigm shift in chemicals management mean? It means putting the service in the center of the business model instead of the product. This is the real paradigm shift. And I'm fascinated that the idea is so widespread all over the world, and that so brilliant people contributed to this book and demonstrated in dozens of projects that there is hardly one segment in the chemical industry where it's not worthwhile thinking about applying chemical leasing. And then this, I think, is our common inheritance, our common treasure chest. And I'm so grateful to the UNIDO team, which did an excellent, tremendous job during the 1.5 decades. And I hope this book finds its way throughout the world and contributes to another walking the talk. Thank you.
Very, very nicely put. And if I understand you correctly, there is quite a bright future, and there are lots of opportunities still for widening the scope of chemical leasing. So may I ask you, what excites you the most about the model?
Sorry, can you repeat this to me?
What excites you the most about chemical leasing, about the model? You have been working with this, we have been working with this for quite many years. So
what is the most exciting thing for me is that it manages to give enthusiasm to people. This is the only experience in my professional life where an idea really motivated so many people to engage in such an endeavor, and they infected their surroundings with that idea. This was for me the most fascinating thing. And of course, if you just look at the figures in the one or the other example, is that we really managed to show how does circular economy work and what does it mean in practice. So those two elements are on the individual basis to ignite enthusiasm. This is a fascinating experience for me. And just to look at the sheer figures, how many tons of chemicals and CO2 we managed to save without diminishing the economic capacity of industry. This is the great thing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so really bringing together this economic environment and also to the social aspect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I must say you are a brilliant promoter of the concept. So I think much of this is also thanks to your engagement and your bringing on board new partners and yeah, just
It's a
walking
teamwork.
forward. Thank you so much, Thomas, for this. I think a lot of people are applauding you for that one. Now, may I come to Christopher Blum from the Austrian, from the German. You see, I'm a bit confused today. I'm a bit excited. You know, I'm really motivated. I'm really, you know, after 2 years when you present a baby, then you're just a bit emotional also. So, Christopher, when we were working together, you were always the one underlining the need for having sustainability criteria to really ensure that the model can't be criticized for going maybe into a direction that we do not want, and also to protect it. Could you explain a bit more why this is so important for you?
Yeah, well, thanks. First, I would like to thank you, Nido, and all involved in organizing this meeting and contributing to the book. And I think this is a very special launch event. And I hope that this event and the Chemical Leasing book will contribute in a way that we can reach out to even more stakeholders and get them involved into the chemical leasing. As for the sustainability criteria, I think it's very important that we have guidelines and a framework and also assurance for the practical users of chemical leasing to really contribute to transformation towards sustainable development. So the sustainability criteria can make a contribution to assure quality of the business model, as well as to assess the benefits which are generated. So and in addition to that, they might help to differentiate from the chemical leasing model to other models, other service models, for example, which do not focus on reducing negative environmental impacts or even health impacts.
Sorry, I had to thank you so much. So that brings me also to the next question, which I think can be quite aligned. So how do you see the role of chemical leasing in today's political discussions and in initiatives? Let's see also what is happening at the EU, SciChem.
Yeah, well, Thomas already mentioned the EU chemical strategy for sustainability. I think chemical leasing is a perfect tool which fits into so many aspects raised in the chemical strategy. I believe that it is an example addressing not only, as already mentioned, economic and ecological aspects, but also has a win-win situation on the social basis. We take into account the training of people, the knowledge sharing, which is basic to chemical leasing model and to the partnerships which are generated. So at the moment, you might be aware that there's also a process called the EU Taxonomy on Sustainable Finance. And I believe it's a tool which is basically to stimulate sustainable financing from the investment sector into certain areas. And since we know that about 95 products we are dealing with every day are intentionally touched or have been treated with or even made from chemicals, chemicals and the chemical industry and all industries and intensively using chemicals are here the target for this approach to sustainable finance. And again, chemical leasing addresses all these needs. We want to improve towards more sustainability. And as for the strategic approach on international chemicals management, so SAICM, which mandates runs out in a few days, and we will have the big ICCM4 Chemicals Management International Conference in July in Germany, in Bonn. And there, hopefully, a new framework for sound management of chemicals and waste will be set up. And again, here, chemical leasing can play an important role, also showing that in developing countries and countries with economies in transition, this is a tool and highlight also for to stimulate likewise initiatives and services to generate the right steps we need also on a global level to come to a sustainable transformation.
Thank you very much. So it seems that chemical leasing is the right model at the right time. And as I have given this question already to Thomas, I would also like to ask you what excites you the most about the model? You have been so active in Germany. You have driven several national programs in Germany. You're very active in also always presenting at the SAICM negotiations. You are the focal point in Germany for chemical leasing. So why do you do all this?
Yeah, well, most of it has already been touched on today, and of course it's a combination of economic, ecological, and social benefits. And what I really like is that you, with chemical leasing, no stakeholder has to point to a ideological manifest like, oh, I have to. But when the model is running, when all partners are contributing and have an agreement on a basis to work on, these positive effects are generated by themselves, and everybody has also from the from their perspective, from their needs that they have to approach that, be it environmental or social or economic, they have a win, and they can go home and they, okay, we have taken a lead on our home ground, on our core business, but on the top we have achieved benefits in other areas as well. And additionally to that, I really like that the chemical leasing model is not only for the chemical industry, the classical chemical industry, but it's also for all industries using chemicals in an intensified way. And on top of that, you have also the potential to reach out to other areas not dealing with chemicals at all. So the generality of this model strikes me really.
Yeah, and as you always say, chemicals are everywhere. So chemicals are everywhere, and this model maybe allows to really reach out to areas that maybe with the normal chemical policies is not so easy to reach. Thank you very much, Christopher. Before we go and have a small break, it's only 3 minutes now. From UNIDO's side, we engaged in chemical leasing first to see a more resource-efficient use of resources. And if you use chemicals in a more efficient manner, it has such a large impact on energy saving, on water saving, on waste reduction, because chemicals are just everywhere. It's not just the reduction of the chemicals. It's such a big impact on the overall performance of a company. So this was our first step. And we wanted to look for new models. And it's very encouraging to see that the circular economy is exactly picking on this, pointing or in a positive way on service-driven, service-based business models like chemical leasing. So thanks for this. Thanks also, Thomas, for your interventions. So we have 2 minutes break, and get your coffee. And then we meet again with the next panel members. Thank you so much. I was told that this should be a very relaxing presentation of the book. So get your coffee, some Christmas biscuits, and relax and enjoy the next panel session. I will not introduce all the panel members at the beginning. I will just give them the floor one by one because they're all merit to have an introduction before. So we are going to start with Vojka Šatrić. Vojka has worked for the Cleaner Production Center in Serbia. She's now an independent consultant, and she's mainly one of the most experienced and passionate expert on chemical leasing. If ever you're not sure if is it a chemical leasing or not, just ask Vojka. And I tell you, we were sitting many hours in my office asking ourselves, is this now chemical leasing or is it not chemical leasing? It's not something that, you know, is born within 5 minutes. It's a longer delivery. And I think Vojka very much knows about it. So wonderful to have you on board, Vojka. And thank you so much for all your valuable contributions throughout the years. So let's come to my first questions. I think you will need 2 hours to respond to this, but maybe you can give a short answer. And I know you're always very precise. So what's your experience in promoting and implementing this model in industry?
Oh, my dear Petra, you know, when we start to work, after a year, I was ready to give up because there was no success, but fortunately, at that time, I was not aware that I am a part of something so wonderful and big like chemical leasing. But when I had our first success in one of our Serbian company, it was really, really good. And I start to be enthusiastic about chemical leasing. And I'm still, after more than 10 years, I am still enthusiastic. It is not easy to promote chemical leasing. Maybe it is easier now, but 10 years ago, people didn't understand it, really didn't. You have to be stubborn, as you would like to tell me. And you have to be persistent and patient to explain supplier and user benefits they could gain from chemical leasing. That is, in short, yes, I can talk whole day about it.
And if you would have to name 3 key success factors that would make a chemical leasing a success, factors for success.
As always, that is about management. They should be committed to the model implementation. That is the first of all. Then you have to have a process that is suitable for chemical leasing, and you have to have tool for measure unit of payments, because we are talking at the end of the day about money. Money is what is interest of management. There are different interests in company, but unit of payment, measuring of unit of payment is very, very important. That is in short. Of course, there are many, but that is 3, I think, the most important.
And for you, what is your biggest motivation to work on chemical leasing, and how did you enjoy working on the book besides all the hours that you invested in your art?
I think it is very important to help people. I know how I started, and I know it is not easy to implement. That is why we tried, not only me, but it is experience of many people all over the world, many case studies to present it in a systematic way, not to waste the time, because you will always waste the time, because you have to convince people, you have to prove that you are you can do what you promised in terms of savings of chemicals, waters, and everything. And this I think is part of book B and C. This will show you how to go forward without waste of time. I think it is very important. The most important in a systematic way, step by step, and you can learn it out of this book.
Mhm. So the book is for you really like a source of information and inspiration that guides companies, that inspires them.
I think I don't know if any one of people that are with us are going to implement the model or not. But in spite of that, you should go through the book because it will boost your creativity. And not only that, maybe some good idea will come out of that reading, because chemical leasing is something really, I think, big and very good for business.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think when we jointly discussed the book, we also wanted to have different chapters, different views. So readers are invited to maybe just tap into this. If you're more interested on looking at it from the political side, you can go there. If you look at it from the practical point of view, if you need some guidance, I think the reader can really choose and pick and also see what are the different aspects and really find whatever he or she needs. That was at least our intention. So we hope it comes through like this. So thank you so much, Wojka, and thanks
Thank you.
for all your in the promotion. Wojka she won the award for consultants. We have, as many of you know, we have an International Chemical Leasing Award. The fifth award is now open, so you can all apply still. And Wojka won several times the award for the consultant. So yeah, she deserves it. I'm coming to the next speaker now. Also an award winner, several award winner from Uganda, from the he's the cost contained manager of Crown Beverages Limited. John Kayenya, may I welcome you, and maybe you can switch on your video, or there are so many participants that I don't see. Yeah, now I see you. Hi, wonderful. Thank you for joining us from beautiful Uganda. And your company has been so active in the promotion of the model. And it was not just a one-time story. It was really over several years that you continued to improve the model, that you looked for new elements. And it was also, I think, especially to your personal engagement in this. And of course, the cooperation with the National Cleaner Production Center in Uganda. Peter, we can also see your face. He was always very closely cooperating with you. Hi, Peter. So may I give you the next question? So what has been the changes in your company since you implemented chemical leasing? Maybe you can elaborate a little bit how you started, how you then further developed it. You have to unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Petra, and for giving me this opportunity to be one of the speakers on this great occasion. Yeah, we started way back, chemical leasing, when it was introduced to us by Peter from Uganda Cleaner Production Center. By then, we were buying our chemicals from Diverse, Eastern and Central Africa Limited, and we used to buy in kilograms and also in liters. And the unit of payment was shillings per liter or shillings per kilogram. But when this new business model was introduced, quite a number of changes have happened. First of all, on the bottle washing, we're using a lot of water. But when we took on this model, the water reduced greatly. We used to use around 116 liters, 116,000 cubic meters per year. But this greatly changed, reduced by almost 40%. The same also applied to the case washer. It also greatly reduced. And in bottle washing, you know, when you are using water, it means also the energy being used is great. So this impacted also on the energy side. When the water reduced, also the energy reduced greatly. And also the caustic. The processes that we handled were basically two: bottle washing on the returnable glass bottles, and then the conveyor lubrication. Before chemical leasing, we had a lot of spillages of the chemicals. So you would find the flow wet, and this would end up in the wastewater treatment plant. So there would be a lot of foam in the waste treatment plant. But after chemical leasing, this was reduced and the foaming was taken away. And what it meant, our costs, what we are spending on the wastewater effluent plant, greatly reduced. Then also we would find that our people we are working on got a more skill, because they are working with now those of the suppliers. They sent their technical people on the machinery, so they were cooperating greatly, and they were greatly impacted. They got a lot of know-how now. And also we find when it went to economic benefits, those savings of water and the chemicals themselves, we had big savings of about 350,000 USD per year. So it was really great. Then also on the safety side, you would find that the people now, because we had reduced the chemicals being used, the flow was dry, it was no longer slippery, the people were much safe. And also Diverse brought in the liquid caustic from the solid we are using. So there are a lot of risks involved in mixing the solid caustic. Mm-hmm. So now it was better working environment for the people. And then also because of the reduced spillages, we would find we are complying now with the environment, because what was being discharged was within. So it greatly impacted us, and there is a lot of improvement. Even the efficiencies on the production line has greatly improved.
Thank you so much for this comprehensive response, which actually also responded already my other question on how it impacted the people in your company. And I think if Christopher listens now in, I think the sustainability criteria have really been fulfilled in your company. We have seen more innovation, you have more income, you have less environmental impact, and you have a healthier and safer workplace. So are you planning to expand the model further?
Exactly. We are already looking out in other areas. We are looking even at our forklift fleet. We want to apply the same model.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you so much. I personally visited your company, and yeah, whenever I'm back in Uganda, I will certainly come and see you again, because it was such an impressive visit that time. Thank you so much. I have now the pleasure, I will go to the next speaker, which is Dorothy Ans, and this is really a great honor to have her here. Dorothy is kind of the voice of the chemical distributors in Europe. She is the Director General of the European Association of Chemical Distributors. She shares my passion for chemical leasing, but she also shares my second passion, which is about gender and encouraging women empowerment. So warm welcome to you. Thank you, Dorothy, for being here with us and for contributing, of course, to the book. So what do you think could motivate companies today to change the business model for, as John also said, for stopping to pay just for the liters of chemicals or for the kilos of chemicals, and now changing to a model where we actually pay for the function, what we really need, and not what somebody wants to sell us as a chemical distributor, maybe even. Please.
Yeah, first of all, many thanks for the kind introduction, Petra, and also to the rest of the UNIDO team for giving us the chance to actively contribute to this fantastic book. Congratulations on that, and also to this launch event. It has been a pleasure and a big honor for us. Yeah, indeed, you mentioned already distributors. We are in a sort of sandwich position between manufacturers on one side and the end customer or the next customer steps on the other hand. So, and of course, we have to take into account the needs and the targets of both sides to be successful in the market. So for us, of course, we have a living commitment to customer needs, to sustainability, and to business performance models, because otherwise we would be superfluous. So this is actually the background. And if you ask me what could motivate people to apply more of this kind of performance-based business models, I think we all see that sustainability and circular economy and resource efficient solutions are very high on the agenda these days. There is, of course, a push from the regulators, but there is also a push from customers. And last but not least, there is also a push from the young generation, the decision makers of tomorrow, and also the customers of tomorrow, and hopefully also a lot of chemical engineers of the future who want to have a purpose in what they are doing and also in what they are consuming. And I think we are all challenged constantly by our kids, there it starts already, but also from the external world to showcase how we contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. And that is a very good background. And now chemical leasing is long before the topic of sustainability rose on the agenda already, a very good example how to merge the different interests of customers, producers, many stakeholders involved in this model, and how to combine sustainability together with a fantastic business model.
So you think this model can help companies to remain or even become more competitive?
Yes, I think so, for sure, because of course, Europe, for example, is not very strong in raw materials and let's say, also our energy prices are higher than in other continents for certain reasons. So we have to be innovative and we have to use our resources really as efficient as possible to develop competitive advantages. And this is certainly where we can differentiate ourselves also versus the competitors. And again, that goes already as front runners and not only driven by regulation.
Yeah, so bringing in also lots of innovation.
Yes, indeed. That is, of course, always the prerequisite.
Yeah. And yeah, one of my favorite questions now. So could this model benefit from more female involvement? How could this be influenced a bit more?
Yeah, so for sure we share this kind of passion. We are strong believers in diversity, and there is also a big business case which is proven by and substantiated by all independent studies that diverse teams perform much better. Why is that? Because obviously we are confronted with incredible challenges these days with all aspects that the previous speakers have already mentioned. That means we need to think out of the box. We need to communicate and cooperate across the traditional constituencies and communities. And we have to find sustainable solutions taking into account various aspects. So I think the more diverse a team is, the more you have this kind of challenge discussions before you develop a certain solution or a certain product, which means that you have already rehearsed or anticipated the trends which you will find in the markets. And I think there is no doubt that our societies, our customer needs, and also our markets get more and more diverse, and with completely new trends, which we have not anticipated like this a couple of years ago. So that means we can only be successful if we are as diverse and if we reflect the diversity we find outside.
Thank you. Thank you so much for raising this important point about diversity and that it really helps us to perform better, that we should not be afraid of discussions, that we should bring in different opinions because that will help us to advance. I am certainly a big fan of diversity in all teams that we are bringing together. So thank you once again for your contribution. I will now go to the next speaker. It is Professor Rodrigo Lozano. Rodrigo is also the Journal Specialty Editor-in-Chief in Sustainable Organizations Frontier at Frontiers in Sweden. Lozano has worked with us from the beginning, has supported right from the beginning, I think, and brought in this academic part, which is very key to the success of a model, because you need to have this academic grounding, you need to have embedded also in this way. And of course, we are working with a lot of universities on bringing this model further. So Rodrigo, very nice to have you. Warm regards to Sweden. I think it's as cold in Vienna or even colder.
And not as cold as it used to be some of the days, but yes, it's dark and miserable.
So we will try to warm your heart with the launching of the Chemical Leasing book. So let me come to my first question. So which value potential do you see in such a model as Chemical Leasing for academic and of course research purposes?
Well, just to give you a little bit of the context, I tend to teach sustainability tools and initiatives for master students and PhD students, including, for example, life cycle assessment, cleaner production, eco-efficiency. And when it comes to green chemistry and eco-design, chemical leasing is one of those really key concepts, because it's not only talking about science and policy. So I know Thomas has been quite involved in REACH, and there's a number of companies that just look into the chemical science, green chemistry. But chemical leasing really gives the other perspective, the business model perspective. So by closing loops between the supplier and the producer and the user, you can close that, and then you can generate profits, as has been mentioned quite a few times before. So the students really like that, because they see not just, oh, I have to get into chemistry. So if you're not a chemistry student, you tend to get lost on with the nitrogens and oxygens and all of those things. But this really gives it a lot of color, and the students go like, yeah, but I can make money out of this. It's not just those crazy chemists with white coats and talking about that, or the chemical engineers talking about reactors. But hey, I may not be able to understand the chemistry about it if I'm not a chemist. If you're a chemist, you can also understand the economic side. But you can by linking those two parts and closing the material loops, then you can think, if I close the material loops, then I can reduce the use of raw materials, and I can reduce the production of waste, not entirely because of the loss of thermodynamics and mass balance, but you can reduce it considerably, up to 90–95%, depending on the chemical that you use. So it really clarifies, it really provides color to the students, and really links it with some of the examples that Wojka was mentioning, that I use it in my class, and they go like, oh yeah, now I get it. Now I get that just closing these loops, that yeah, okay, it might be complicated to close the loops in the beginning, but once you've done that, it just kind of self-replicates. So you take into consideration the time perspective of sustainability, as mentioned by the Brundtland report, Next Generation, that created really as okay, I might be losing a bit of money in the beginning, but not really, because year by year you are saving lots of resources and making more money in that sense. So my students really like it, and also because from the paper that we go work with Wojka, I have a lot of hands-on experience, and the students really like that, to give them a real life example. Well, look, I worked on this, and this is the place, and this is a company in Serbia, and the company does so and so. So they really like it.
Very good. Yeah. So the true story is always very convincing. No, when you can really touch it. So thanks a lot for this, Rodrigo. And how do you see the future of such models, of these service performance-based business models?
I see. I mean, I'm quite positive about it, but we need to change the mindset of some academics because, as it's been mentioned before, we're still used to buying kilograms and liters and not buying a function. I remember in Vienna some years ago we were discussing how do we set up this function? How do we change the mindset of the user and sometimes also the producer of selling a liter of any chemical to selling a service that would clean 1,000 or 2,000 bottles, and how do you price that? So I see that with a lot of potential, but we need to start changing the mindset on changing from selling kilograms or liters to a function, and that takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think whenever we initiated a chemical leasing case, that was the key question. What is the basis of payment? And what is the cost? How can I define this? That is not an easy undertaking. It needs also a lot of cooperation. It needs a lot of cooperation with the company and engagement with different actors to see, okay, and some time also. Very often we had trials in the company that we then were able to define what is really the cost. How do you, let's say, I'm not buying glue anymore, but now I'm paying for the box glued. So this is the result. So, and what is the price tag that I'm putting on this? It's not an easy undertaking, and it requires more thinking of the companies, more efforts. And maybe you have also seen this. That's maybe is one of the challenges. What do you think?
It's a challenge to the students, and as I said, when I try to teach the tools, initiatives, and approaches, I try to give them a very holistic perspective. So we go from technical tools, life cycle assessment, eco-efficiency, to very much what we can call socially oriented tools, or socially responsible investments, sustainable marketing. So I try to give my students all the gamma of these ones. And chemical leasing, the advantage is that it can link two different parts. So the technical part to the management side of operating a company. And as I said, it's one of the many different tools that I teach, but it's one of the ones that you can pinpoint and say, look, that one is really clean. It's really understandable. Circular economy is another one that is picking up, but then chemical leasing, the way it's set up is pretty much circular economy within an organizational level, an industry level in that sense. You have to close the loop in order to have your circular economy. One advantage of chemical leasing over some approaches on circular economy is that chemical leasing is very explicit. It says you have to save resources, and at the same time you have to really put the dollar sign or the euro sign on that. While sometimes circular economy, depending on which approach you use, tends to have it kind of implicit. Some are very explicit, some approaches are, but chemical leasing is pretty much of, look, we need to make money out of this. It's not just save the environment for the environment's sake, but this is save the environment whilst at the same time make money for the producer, the user, and sometimes even for the facilitator. And so UNIDO has been facilitating that. The cleaner production centers have also helped us have served as facilitators. So it's a matter of win-win situations.
Yeah, we will now come to the next round where I will give all the presenters, please switch on your video. I will give you 1 minute or maybe 2, just to tell us why should anybody read this book. And following this round, we will take on some questions. So Thomas, why would you tell your daughter to read this book, or why would you tell your minister to read this book, or anybody? Thomas, are you connected?
Yeah. Yes. I would say anybody who is interested in a journey about a real showcase for sustainable development and to give circular economy a true meaning, to learn what is it in practice, Anybody who is interested to learn about such a showcase should read this book.
Thank you very much. Christopher.
Yeah, well, thanks. My daughter, she just finished reading Harry Potter, and I would, if someone would like to have a glance into the crystal ball, though, into the future, he should look into the Chemical Leasing book, because there are so many, not also in particular for the business model, but also the whole framework which is needed to stimulate transformation towards sustainability can be founded here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So Harry Potter and then Chemical Leasing, that's a nice combination. Vojka. Unmute, please.
Everybody should go through it, I think, and choose whatever he wants. I believe it will help him or her to improve the business, to be more creative and get some good ideas about business, and not only about business, because chemical leasing is wider than in business, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was just reading in the chat that read this book to make money. I think that's very much aligned with what you just said, Vojka.
I'm going to recommend
John,
the government.
Yes.
Yes, John can point a recommendation as asked.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry, Peter.
Yeah, anybody who wants sustainable development should read this book and understand it and see that really it works, the model works.
Okay, great. Mrs. Arns. Hello? Dorothy, do you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, had a little hiccup in the internet line. Yeah, we will for sure recommend the lecture of this book to our members, and if we may also put it on our homepage, because it's a sort of Bible, giving a comprehensive approach to the topic and break the sustainability topic itself down into what I find a very good example on how you can merge sustainability with an economic business case. And you did a fantastic job there, and it couldn't be more in time for the regulatory agenda on top. So congratulations, and we'll be happy to support this initiative.
Thank you very much. Please, everybody, put the book on your homepage and promote it and tell all your family to read it. Thank you so much. So, Rodrigo, how many students will read it?
Well, at the moment, due to the circumstances, we have about 5 students, but hopefully next year we'll have usually 20-30 students. That's what we will have. But we'll also be promoting it here in the region. I have some old copies of the previous books. I've been giving them away, and I think it's very important. So if I would tell my students and industry, if you want to see circular economy in action in organizations, read this book. It's pretty much of what circular economy is aiming to do. And this is, as I said, much cleaner and much clearer to the reader than just some of the other circular economy definitions.
Thank you very much. And I think that was also what was our aim with the book, to really attract, to have a hands-on book, to have it for everybody, have something in there for everybody. I have looked a little bit at the question. If I understood the last one right, is that, and we had this discussion before, do we need legislation to bring this, to move this model forward? Is it enough to have just a model that is driven by industry? And maybe I give these questions to Thomas and also and to John. Then we're shaking the head. So to have the government point of view and also the company point of view. So do we need legislation to bring it forward, or is it a self-running concept? I have my own opinion on this, but I'm not going to tell you.
if I may react on that, I think at least we should make legislation fit so that chemical leasing can be implemented without legal hurdles. This is point one. And then I think we should create legal incentives. For instance, that you get an authorization easier, quicker, or cheaper when you apply chemical leasing. And then you can use instruments like eco-labels to say dry cleaning only, eco-label when it is done in a chemical leasing way. So I think making the legislation chemical legal friendly, giving incentives and also visibility is the right environment. But indirectly, it defines the best available technique. And I think naturally it will be sooner or later be more or less mandatory to use it, but not because it's written in the legislation, but because the legislation requires to use the best available technique. And I think sooner or later, chemical leasing will be regarded as best available technique and thus be more or less mandatory to be applied. Thank you.
Absolutely. Very, very interesting approach and very, very important. John, you were shaking your head before. Do you think we need a legislation in Uganda to obligate companies to use chemical leasing? Or to encourage them? Let me put it like this, encourage, not obligate.
I was just considering the benefits, really. If there was a way we could share the benefits with the users, because there are some other areas where legislation has been put, but pushing it for people to follow, it becomes hard in itself. But once the concept of chemical leasing is understood and the associated benefits, I think that would be great. It's one of the bigger incentive to drive it.
Yeah. So why purchase 1,000 kilos if you only need 5? If you can do it with 5. Less waste, more efficient use, less money involved, and a better working environment, as you mentioned before. Thank you so much from my side. Thank you once more for listening in. Get the book, read it, recommend it to as many people as possible. And from Count on UNIDO to support you and to move forward with the concept. Thank you so much to everybody. Gabi, back to you.
To thank you all again to take the time to join us to talk about this very inspiring topic, which is really an example, as we hear from how we can realize sustainable development, taking into account all 3 pillars: economical, social, and environmental. With that, I would like to wish you happy holidays, the ones who celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. And before we close and before all you go, I would like to ask you to switch on the camera, that we can make a picture. And I see there's some burning question on Petra's lips. So
we forgot to thank Maria and Ellie for the wonderful preparation of all this.
Yes.
And, Maria for really doing the layout of the book. We had a lot of back and forward, so thanks.
Yes, I think they were also on the list, but we should also underline give them more visibility. So please switch on your video if you can, so we can take a group picture, how we do it nowadays, Yes, please. And then Ellie will take that picture. Good to see so many people. Wow, yes, this is great. And as you have seen in the video in the post, we continue, UNIDO will continue to promote this model. And we see also now younger generation in the picture who will push us to be more sustainable. And that's good, so continue.